As the echoes of war reverberate through the streets of Russia, a darker story unfolds beneath the official narratives. Soldiers, lured to the front lines by promises of honor, wealth, and patriotic duty, are returning not as heroes but as victims, targets of the very system that once celebrated their sacrifice. This is not just a tale of mismanagement or oversight. It is a chronicle of systemic betrayal. From small towns to urban centers, evidence reveals a network of corruption that preys on these men in uniform, robbing them not only of their earnings, but of their dignity. In this investigation, we delve into the underbelly of Russia's military recruitment machine, exposing the grim realities that await those who come home from war. They were promised honor, gratitude, and a hero's welcome. What many received instead was betrayal, theft, and the cold grip of corruption. In the shadow of a war hailed by the Kremlin as a patriotic crusade, a trail of broken promises is emerging, exposing a system that feeds on its own soldiers. When Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, President Vladimir Putin relied heavily on financial incentives to swell the ranks. With the country's economy faltering and regions facing dire poverty, recruitment surged. Millions of rubles were promised, up to 5.2 million in the first year alone, plus hefty injury compensations. It was a lifeline for many. One of those recruits was 39-year-old welder Nikita Kursa, a native of Rostov region, whose town straddles the uneasy frontier between Russia and Ukraine. Drawn by the allure of financial stability, Kursa enlisted, serving briefly in the summer of 2024 before sustaining injuries that sent him home. Back in Russia, Kursa hoped to reclaim normalcy. He and his wife, Oksana, had planned to buy a flat, finally something permanent, a future solidified by war-earned savings. But reality struck with cruel irony. During a heated argument about his drinking, Kursa stormed out barefoot, clutching a plastic bag filled with their saved-up cash. Drunken, despondent, and impulsive, he headed toward Rostov, determined to buy an apartment on his own. His journey didn't go far. Pulled over by traffic police, Kursa was coerced into revealing his cash. When one officer suggested leniency, the other spotted the money and made the call. "Shut up! Do you know how much money that is?" Kursa, just home from war, saw nearly 2.6 million rubles vanish into their hands. It wasn't just highway robbery. It was a system operating under the blind eye of the very leadership that had promised loyalty, respect, and care. Putin had declared returning servicemen the new elite, a title meant to symbolize pride. Yet officials, from street cops to military brass, seemed eager to exploit the windfall that came with soldiering. Kursa reported the officers to the police. Charges were filed: robbery and abuse of power. Justice, it seemed, might flicker. But before the case saw a courtroom, both accused officers enlisted to fight in Ukraine, exploiting a recent law that allowed criminal suspects to avoid trial by joining military service. In the grim calculus of war, accountability took a back seat. Across Russia, Kursa's story echoed among dozens, possibly hundreds of other servicemen. At a Moscow airport, police officers allegedly tipped off taxi drivers about returning soldiers flush with war payments. The drivers, presenting as ordinary cabbies, lured unsuspecting men in with fair fares only to extort outrageous sums once the ride ended. Those who resisted were intimidated, drugged, or duped into revealing bank card pins. Investigators estimate over 1.5 million rubles were stolen. But the thefts go deeper. At recruitment centers, staff members allegedly kept SIM cards issued to new soldiers, giving themselves access to salary-linked accounts. In the Vladimir region, 3 employees were arrested after over 11 million rubles disappeared from the accounts of young recruits. In Belgorod, one local official simply rerouted funds to his personal number, an elegant theft that preyed on the trusting and the vulnerable. Commanders, too, are implicated. One soldier told the BBC that his unit was barred from shops and forced to hand over their bank cards and pins to a sergeant major. The officer, who eventually fled, reportedly made off with over 50 salary cards, including some linked to soldiers now listed as missing in action. The total haul may have reached several million rubles. Amid the chaos, Kursa struggles to rebuild. He never recovered his stolen money. Still healing from shrapnel lodged near his heart, he awaits a military doctor's verdict on whether he'll return to battle. As a contract soldier, he is bound to serve until the war ends, a date neither marked on calendars nor promised by generals. His marriage has fractured. He and Oksana have parted ways, their bond eclipsed by war's aftermath. "Only the army saves you," Kursa said from a hospital near St. Petersburg, "puts a roof over your head." It is a bitter truth. With civilian life offering no safety net and war guaranteeing shelter at a price, many veterans find themselves tethered to the very machine that once betrayed them. The BBC's expose reveals not just individual acts of fraud, but a pervasive culture of exploitation. A system that dangles riches to lure recruits but fails to protect them once they return. From petty thieves to institutional insiders, those entrusted with soldiers' welfare have instead weaponized their vulnerability. What remains is a stark portrait of modern Russia's war effort, not the glorious crusade imagined in state propaganda, but a fragmented society where sacrifice is rewarded with silence and heroism is no shield against greed. Behind each stolen ruble lies a story like Kursa's, of hope dashed, honor mocked, and a nation that forgot its own warriors. In the fog of war, glory may be promised, but in its aftermath, disillusionment takes root. The stories of Nikita Kursa and countless others paint a picture not of national pride, but of personal devastation. These men served their country. They bore wounds, risked everything, and hoped for a future anchored by the rewards they were told awaited them. Instead, they were cheated, manipulated, and discarded. Behind the facade of patriotic fervor lies a stark truth. The battlefield doesn't always end at the front. For Russia's returning soldiers, it begins again the moment they come home.